All right, am I calling this meeting to order like a normal?
Yeah.
A normal meeting? Okay. What time is it?
5:02.
It's 5:02. Calling this meeting of the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee to order.
Roll call.
Yes, please.
Okay. Committee member Garrison is absent. Committee member Anderley.
Present.
Committee member Calhoun is absent. Committee member Smith.
Present.
Committee member Beatty is absent. And committee member Roshtu is absent. As we do not have a quorum, we will let the consultants do their presentation. We will record the presentation, and the committee won't have a chance to ask questions or make recommendations, but you can send your individual recommendations to staff after the presentation.
Great.
So is
Thank you.
John or Brandy, which one
That's
are you
okay.
going to go first?
Do you have the presentation,
Yeah.
the PowerPoint?
Can we all see that? Fantastic.
Wonderful. And then John, would you like to start us off, or would you like me to?
How about I'll start off. Brandy's slides are all up front, but I can tee us off. So hey, thanks everyone for coming. Again, I'm John Boskett with DKS Associates, and I'm the project manager for the consultant team, helping the city out with this TSP update. And if you didn't know, just a reminder of where we're at in the process. We are kind of in the last phase here. So we now have our draft updated transportation system plan together. And over the next couple of months, we'll be making final adjustments. So we're coming back to get input from this committee, from our stakeholder group. We'll be doing a work session with Planning Commission, City Council, all leading up to the adoption hearings. We'll mention that in a later slide, but just want to kind of give you a reminder of where we are. Let's see if you go to the next slide. So a lot of what we're doing today is kind of looking back, and this is just a reminder of at the outset of the project when we talked about what we wanted to accomplish from an equity perspective, or how do we want to conduct this process. We took the larger equity lens document that this committee had worked on and put together, kind of took some pieces from that we thought could be directly applicable to this work. And so in the draft TSP, we have a goal about equity, and then these 5 objectives were what we've been using throughout the process, whether that's guiding the types of projects that we were developing, or helping us think about how we're doing our outreach. And Brandy's going to go first, and she's going to kind of look back at our outreach process, and you can think about that objective 4.4. It's, providing a multifaceted, accessible, and inclusive public engagement process that considers a wide range of lived experiences and provides all community members an opportunity to provide input on transportation system decisions. And then as she hands it over to me, I'll be covering more of the other objectives. Probably mostly the 4.2 and 4.3 are the ones that are the most applicable of those remaining goals. And that's, largely having to do with, are we providing a plan that's giving the city an opportunity to provide affordable transportation options, and also in a way that's improving accessibility to all of the essential destinations, whether that's, in the city or in the surrounding area. And so I will go through that as after Brandy has gone through her section. So if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, I think I'm handing this off, Brandy.
Great, thanks so much for setting that background. So yeah, we really just want to kind of answer the questions here today. How did we engage? As John said, that 4.4, and then just what did we hear? And so that's kind of what I'll take you through here on the next slide. So we, during the second round of outreach, sorry, if you can go to the next slide, please. Great. So we created a new version of the fact sheet. We updated the website and did some social media posts, as well as coming to you all and coming to City Council to provide you an update on what we heard for the first round of outreach and to get your advice on how to conduct our second round of outreach. And then we use the fact sheet, the website, and social media posts to help advertise the in-person open house as well as the online open house. We also attended a What's Up Estacada event, and we spent a couple hours canvassing downtown to try to spread the word to people who may not have heard about the project up to that point. So the next slide talks about our outreach results. So people definitely had concerns about mostly just retaining the small town feel of Estacada. And there was some tension around not feeling heard around some other previous outreach efforts. And there was an overwhelming support to see safety improvements. So mostly we heard from people who live near or within Estacada. Most of those people traveled by car. And when we looked at just the survey respondents, they were all white, all English speaking, and all over the age of 25, with most of them in the upper range of over 40 to 60. And then about half of those survey respondents optionally provided income levels. That was not required. But those people who did provide that information, half of those made over $100,000 a year. We also, when we canvassed downtown, most of those people that we spoke with were white, English speaking, but lower income. So minimum wage employees. And then we also reached out to the low income residential units in the downtown area. So again, there was, most of the people were really interested in safety regardless of this category. So the next slide, some additional input that we heard is wanting alternatives to the highway for local travel. This is similar to what we heard in round one, a need for connective travel that's safe for all modes. And there were many people who said, but not at the expense of vehicular traffic. And then many people brought up evacuation procedures, the connection to what is being built on the land or the land use, and then recognizing that the area is really growing, and so how to accommodate that growth, again, while preserving that small town feel that drew people to Estacada. And then again, that concern about not feeling heard. A lot of that was in the canvassing in downtown and the downtown improvements. And so there was this hesitation from many people to provide comments at this stage. I know we're not asking any questions, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I can provide to you. Overall, I would say that the responses were probably lower at this stage than the previous round of outreach. This is pretty common for transportation system plans, once people kind of say what's wrong or what they want to envision for the community, which is what we did in round one, people are really excited usually at that stage of a process. And then when projects come out and there's a list, the interest tends to fade because they see there's something happening, or there's movement. And so they're not, a lot of times people don't feel either educated enough about the details or comfortable providing comments, or sometimes they feel like, great, you've got it all, I don't really need to comment at this stage. So so it's quite common to see a drop off in responses and participation at this point of a process. And we did see that with this project, with this phase of outreach. And I will say that you know, we continue to reach out to many of the same partners that we did for the first phase. And then also at the What's Up Estacada event, several other organizations helped spread the word about the project. And so we did connect to more organizations. Particularly, there was a woman who works with Spanish speaking families in the school district, and so we did connect with her, and she provided some feedback about the desires that she's heard from her constituents about safety, especially getting to school, safe routes to school options. So you know, I think it's quite normal at this stage. It's kind of unfortunate, but to see that drop off in participation. This is where I think I would go to the next slide, and just, I think as a reminder, this is what John mentioned earlier, is just, this is our briefing here today, and then there's the stakeholder committee meeting on the 17th. And then this is where I hand it off to John.
And I'm going to chime in here too. Another upcoming meeting that we have for this project after the 17th will be the city council briefing, which is on Monday, the 23rd at 6 p.m.
All right, thank you. You can go to the next slide for me. So if I were asking you questions today, I guess this is a question for later. You can think about this one when you're providing your comments, going back to those goals and objectives. And again, I think it was primarily the 4.2 and 4.3 are probably the core of it, is will this draft TSP help Estacada achieve the equity focused goals and objectives? Again, of course, this is the plan, right? Implementation and how you fund things and advance them is going to be critically important. But does this plan at least give you that opportunity and put you in position to do that? So if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. One thing is just the way investments are proposed to be allocated, or at least the opportunity to spread the money around to different types of projects, right? Different modes. If you're familiar with the old, was it 2007 TSP, didn't include a chart like this one, but if it did, it would look very, very different than this chart. It was really all mostly motor vehicle oriented projects with very little projects for walking and biking, right? Unless they were just part of the street that was getting built. Extremely different this time, and in large part due to the active transportation plan, that standalone effort that was done a few years ago. And we pulled all of that work forward into this TSP. And so you see a tremendous amount of projects that are specifically targeted at making walking and biking more comfortable and in a way that people can get to all the destinations around the city. With 79 of those projects compared to 17 that are specifically just targeted at driving and congestion. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So looking at a few ways in which the TSP recommendations could help you achieve equitable outcomes. One is transit access, again, trying to make different modes of connection that are more affordable, walking, biking, transit primarily, easier to use, safer to use. There are projects in there, early in the project or this TSP update, we'd heard about a need for more support for transportation assistance programs already out there. Specifically, what had come up was the program through the community center, which can get people rides to medical appointments and things of that nature. The county also has the transportation reaching people program that does a very similar thing. And my understanding is the key constraint there, it's just getting enough volunteers to carry the program out and do this. And so that's one of the recommendations or one of the projects in the transit category is for the city to help with that, whether it's through advertising outreach, finding ways to incentivize or help advertise for volunteers to help provide the people that are needed to make that program work. Also, there are some projects to improve just the area around the stops themselves. So just your ability to get to them. That's improving curb ramps so they're ADA compliant, possibly adding better street crossings so you can get to them. And then, of course, there's that the first last mile, right? The city doesn't own and operate the transit system, but a lot of the infrastructure that helps you get to and from it, they do. And so we have a lot of projects that provide that infill where it's needed to get good sidewalk connections and good bike facilities, especially with all that growth that's coming in to the east of the main bus route. All those new facilities would have walking and biking facilities built into those streets so people can get to and from the bus. Next slide. Safe routes to school projects is another way. And again, a lot of this is carryover from the active transportation plan. There are 12 projects that are specifically identified as safe routes to school projects to make walking and biking to school safer, although there are several more in that whole surrounding area that could just as easily have been tagged or as a safe routes to school project, but they were maybe do other things. So there's a lot of opportunity to do that. And those come in a variety of forms, whether it's improving street lighting, signing and striping projects, there's some sidewalk infill projects, updating curb ramps, and improving street crossings. And just because of where the schools are located, a lot of those projects also happen in the kind of the older neighborhood in town above the downtown, as we kind of mentioned. That's as compared to the newer neighborhoods, which obviously those streets get built to the new standards, so they've got largely full sidewalks. There are a lot of gaps and inconsistencies in the sidewalk system through that older neighborhood. And so a lot of these active transportation projects, and specifically all these safe routes to school ones, kind of pull double duty in that way as well. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And just making walking and biking easier and safer. Again, tremendous amount of focused active transportation projects. That is them on the map there. I think this, what we said, there's 79 individual projects for walking and biking. They come in a lot of different forms. And part of that is new street designs. Again, that was done as part of the active transportation plan project. Those were carried forward. That provide a lower level of traffic stress. So they're more comfortable for people of all ages and abilities. So they have more separation from traffic generally than kind of the standard design, which might just have say a 6-foot bike lane next to an 11-foot lane of cars. A lot of these special street designs are on designated key corridors, provide more buffer for people biking. And a very extensive shared use path network. It's kind of a new component that was developed as part of this TSP. And that's, if you look at that map, all those blue dashed lines on the north end of the city. And a lot of those conveniently parallel some of the corridors where new minor arterials or minor collectors, are getting built or will be built. So they provide a really nice alternative, again, that's kind of more all ages and all abilities friendly than kind of the standard designs. One of the comments we got, I think it was from the second round of outreach, was from the Estacade Area Food Bank, noting that a lot of the people that come there do ride their bikes there, but they're not finding enough secure places to park their bikes. There is bike parking in downtown and in that area, but not a lot. And so one of our projects would just add more bike parking in the downtown and specifically in that area. And then there are some maybe slightly less traditional projects in there. One is just to provide support for some ongoing bicycle education and promotion programs, especially for school children, so they hopefully grow up knowing how to ride safely and are encouraged to do so. And then also to explore maybe longer term, looking at putting a bike share in town and just doing the feasibility study to start to figure out what that might look like and if that is a viable option here. Maybe something in combination, with the state park. Hopefully, if you are successful in getting that bike and ped bridge put across the river, that would be a fantastic amenity. But that's just another way for people to get access to a bike that might not own one. And of course, you can figure out a lot of the details through a feasibility study, but part of that can be scaled fee structures. So, people with lower incomes, maybe they don't pay or they pay less than everybody else. And also a bike share program can have different types of bikes that are adaptable and accommodating people with mobility challenges. So a lot of different components to that to help folks get around the city. Next slide, please. Street crossings was another one that came up, and specifically, obviously the highway can be a pretty significant barrier between a lot of the downtown, a lot of the residential development, and then recreational opportunities and employment opportunities. And so we've got a number of projects that would help people get across the highway. There's some enhanced crossings at 2nd and Wade, more in the downtown area, and those could be, I don't know, think of like the fairly new pedestrian crossing at 10th at Eagle Creek. So these might be things that maybe they narrow down the crossing a little bit, maybe provide some better lighting and warning signage to make it more obvious to people driving that people are crossing the street here and they need to slow down and stop. Also, the signal at Broadway, again, this was pretty early in the project. We got some input that just the way the signal timing was, it wasn't giving people enough time, especially older people or with mobility challenges, to get across the street. I believe ODOT, we went ahead and we talked with ODOT to see if they could just move on that and not wait for our plan. And my understanding is they've done that, or probably very close to doing it if they haven't. I haven't gone out there and checked. You can check that out. I believe what they were supposed to have done was implement what's called leading pedestrian intervals. So basically, if you're going to cross the street and you get the walk sign or walk signal, usually what happens is kind of the parallel green light turns on at the same time. But what would happen with these leading pedestrian intervals is you'll get the walk sign, but it delays that green light for the traffic for, say, 4 or 5 seconds. So it gives the pedestrian more time to cross the street and more time to get out there and be visible and establish their presence. But the next step would be to add audible pedestrian signals to that traffic signal as well. And that is in the plan. And then there are a few intersections that would include either traffic signals or roundabouts, so it would help people cross the street as well. Those being at River Mill, 6th Avenue, which would be a future extension of 6th Avenue, and the junction of Highway 211 and 224. Next slide. As I said at the outset here, we can put a lot of things in the plan, but obviously it all comes down to implementation. And we put a statement in the TSPs I quoted over here at the right. Part of that is just making sure that as you're making investment decisions as a city for the next 10, 15, 20 years, that you continue to look at those decisions through an equity lens. So it's not losing sight of kind of some of the focus and effort that's been put on just the plan itself. And then also something, I think something to keep in mind, again, because a lot of these projects are, for walking, biking, supporting transit. The revenue sources that are kind of currently sustained and available for funding transportation projects in the city, they're pretty limited. It's mostly system development charges, which are fairly restricted in how they can be used. So a lot of these active transportation projects may be difficult or not possible to fund with those, meaning you're going to have to look at either, establishing a new funding source or, specifically pursuing grants to fund those. So that could be a challenge moving forward for a number of these things. Next slide, which I think is my last one. And there's the next steps. So as we mentioned before, stakeholder committee meetings on the 17th. And the planning commission city council briefing is on the 23rd. Did you say that was a Taylor? Did you say November? Earlier?
October 23rd.
Okay, I jotted down November and I thought that's not right. October 23rd, I did get it right on my slide. And then we're looking to begin the adoption process, the public hearings in November, and that probably will take a couple of months. And that is my last slide. I guess I can leave it with this. I know we're not asking or answering questions, but in the time where you're kind of thinking about this and providing responses, again, because really over the next month or two, or I guess leading up to November, maybe the next month, I guess, is when I'd really like to get all the final adjustments in here. I just kind of like to know, as you go back and you look at those equity related goals and objectives, did we miss something? That needs to get in here.
Are we able to ask and answer questions? It just wouldn't be, on the record as a DEI committee meeting or recommendation or anything. If people have questions in the room, can we address them? I'm kind of looking at Elena, but I don't know
If it's a item that was on a committee agenda and the committee does not have a quorum, we should not continue with the committee meeting because they do not have a quorum. So.
I wonder if we could if you all send questions, like I think, would that go through you, Taylor?
Yeah, anyone's always welcome to send questions to me or to the planning email or just call us. But it just seems like we've got everyone in the room, we've got everyone on microphones. Is there a way that we can have dialogue if there are questions or comments here now that wouldn't be breaking some rule?
Yeah, could we adjourn the meeting and then people could stick around and ask any questions they might have?
Right. I'm seeing nodding. I think we should do it. And if we get in, yeah, I think that would work. I think let's try that. I just want to make, I think people have questions and yeah. So who adjourns it if this isn't even
It's not even a meeting.
Meeting.
It's just a presentation. You want to send that on?
Since I'm at the mic, yeah. So this is just an informational presentation. So if the community members have community member questions, not as committee members, community members can ask the consultants questions because consultants are here.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't even have to adjourn anything then because we're not in a DEI committee meeting.
Should I just adjourn it anyway, just because
Just in case.
I called it to order?
Oh, yeah.
So let's bookend it. So with that, at 5:31, we will conclude today's presentation by the TSP planners.
Okay.
TPS, nope.
TSP, you got it.
Okay. Whew. Thanks.
Okay. So yeah. Is that okay with you, John and Brandy, if we do questions? And I think you guys might have had some places in the presentation where you would have asked questions, if those are things you would still want to ask, but how about the folks in the room, including in the audience? If there are questions or comments, we would love to hear them.
I'll ask something, but I think this might be more for the city. I know great lengths were gone to be inclusive and to reach out to communities who might not feel comfortable providing input on the plan. Can we put into place, or has something already been put into place to collect some feedback or anecdotal data as the plan moves forward and people say, I didn't have a chance to participate, and to try to dig in a little bit to that, to see, you know, here's the methods that we used. How was this not helpful? Like, how are you, like, what was your barrier to access, so that we can continue to improve upon how we're gathering information.
Yeah. Yes, I don't have specific ideas about that. I think that's kind of, in my mind, that's something that this committee, it would be great for this type of committee to work on that, you know, like how can the city do a better job of reaching everyone instead of, you know, reaching the same people over and over again who are already involved in stuff, or reaching people that have barriers, whatever. So yeah, that'd be great if this committee wanted to work on that. That's also something that we staff are open to, but it's hard for us to do extra stuff
Yeah.
sometimes because we're pretty swamped.
So I just want us to
But
think
yeah.
about what that mechanism might be for redirecting those people, so we're ready when those comments come up. Like, is it just emailing us? I don't know. I just want to make sure that we receive the feedback and connect the people, so we have an opportunity to follow up with them.
Yeah.
So I'm sure all the pieces are there. It's just, let's think about it before it starts happening.
Yeah, I mean, in the context of just this plan, we, you know, if someone reached out to me saying, I didn't know about all these, like, I wasn't invited to participate, I didn't know how to participate. Why didn't you involve me? You know, what we can do at that point is kind of just let them know, well, here's what we did. Here are all the ways that we tried to reach out to community members. And that will at least open the conversation about why they weren't able to participate in those particular engagement activities. But yeah, I don't have specific ideas beyond that.
So we do have, you know, we have some lists that people could sign up for. So if somebody reached out to Taylor right now and said, hey, I didn't hear about this meeting, she could say, I can add you to the email list for the TSP. Or if, you know, it's a group that didn't, like, let's say the senior center said, hey, I didn't have a chance to contribute. We have a community groups list also that people regularly reach out to those groups. So we do have some lists that we can add them to for future references.
You said social media outreach.
Yeah, could you speak into the?
Sorry, the podium, or-
Yeah, no, just to go to one of those mics.
We have
'cause
enough microphones
we have enough
for
microphones,
the whole
yeah.
audience here.
Yeah. Yeah.
In an unofficial capacity.
Yes.
So you say social media outreach is one of your methods, right?
Mhm.
And I would say that's a more modern approach rather than the archaic walk around the store, ask people how they feel. That's almost, this is just for lack of a better word at the moment, but predatory. You kind of pin somebody against a corner and, hey, how do you feel about this, right? So what does your social media outreach look like? And I'm asking from trying to understand,
Yeah.
right? Like from a place of, say, zero knowledge base, like what does that look like?
So the city has official city Facebook and official city Instagram, which were both posted there. And then there's some other committees that have their own, like the Traffic and Public Safety Committee have their own, and it could be shared through that one too. And then we've had committee members take that information and share it into some of the local Facebook groups. So, like Facebook locals and things like that to say, hey, here's the upcoming meeting, or here's the link to the survey.
Yeah, so I mean, like, just. Did you?
Oh, no, but there is a procedural sort of hierarchy of how the information has to move from the committee to the city to be shared, and then maybe individuals can reshare it. This whole strategy is one of the things that we've been trying to navigate, because we're trying to figure out the best way to reach a larger blanket of the community, so.
Right, so I guess my concerns, or not even concerns, but I
Yeah.
guess my thoughts on this would be, so we're saying the city has this active social media, which is awesome. I commend you guys for that. That's great. But like, how active is that? Like, and when we're doing that, what's the response like on that? Are we actively engaging with members of the community via that? Or is it just like a digital post-it board where once a month we stick stuff up? Because where I'm going with this is, my concern is on your approach is your sounding board that you're speaking to is the same 15 people, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that might come from, and this is one of the things that I personally like to address later, is getting more of the people involved, right? Especially some of the younger demographics and stuff like that. It'd be nice to see the people in their 30s and 40s even step up and be more vocal, or even in their mid-20s. And I don't mean that at all to be rude to anybody older. That's not my point here. But if I'm to be honest with you, I said my piece about this is about trying to look at this objectively for the community. And now I think that there's a place for all of it, but I think that we're literally swimming in a fishbowl with the current way that we're doing this. You're reaching the extreme version of this side. That's very, I mean, we all can agree that we've seen the Facebook
Yeah.
garbage. It gets forwarded to me as well.
Uh-huh.
And then we're also reaching the extreme on the other side that hides with fake names and attacks people with the same 7 comments and the same degree. So rather than grown-ups essentially
Uh-huh.
having a discussion and coming to it from a solution-based thing, I see a very problem-based oriented thing where we have essentially what we're doing is creating division. And that's my concern, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So
With the city page, or what specifically, what's creating
Just
division?
holistically,
Clarify.
the approach here, I think this needs to be more of an open-ended conversation, like. Let's just say the city page specifically, like, if we treat it like a post-it board, well, digital or not, we're still dealing with the same issues. People would just look at something and they walk by it. It's the same thing as like pull a tab at the store, right? Only now it's swipe by it. So, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no,
Hand raised though.
but Brandy, if she wants to.
I think these are all great points. I just wanted to say that yes, like, I think we're competing for a lot of people's time and interest, right? And I think that it's sometimes hard to make that compelling case. And I think that that's where we can continue to rely on this group, for your recommendations and for people who are interested to try to get the word out to more people and make sure it's relevant. I think when we did the canvassing, we also posted flyers. Like you say, it is kind of just like a take one. We had a QR code so people could scan it. We also had the website listed as well. And we hung that around town, including at like the Harvest Market and the Dollar General, the high school pharmacy, and shared it with the employees there and talked with them at all of those locations about the project. And we also left it at City Hall in the library and the esticated laundromat. So trying to get some places where people might already be and might be sort of interested. But people kind of wanted to say, yeah, like I want improvements, but they weren't interested in kind of going deeper. So I think that's something we can continue to work on and show the importance of, like, here's why transportation's important, right? So
When we did the initial round of Facebook posts, they were questions, like what issues do you see surrounding accessibility? And people responded with posts on that. And I send the analytical report out and you can see it is not reaching a wide range of people. We are reaching majority women. It's like 75% women between the ages of 35 and 55. That is who is following us on both Facebook and Instagram. But when we do post on our pages and we get interaction, we do ask questions to try and create a dialogue, especially in the beginning when we were looking for the initial feedback of where are we having problems or what kind of projects would you like to see? We were asking a lot of specific questions that were targeted towards those interest topics.
Yeah, and Elena, again, please don't take anything that I'm asking as personal attack. I'm just trying to have an open-ended conversation from a trying to learn standpoint as well myself and get caught up. But that being said, so I mean, how could we?
A lot of when we see a lot of this kind of negativity back and forth topics, it's not necessarily on the city's page. It is on these Facebook groups. Yeah. And there's some issues with records management that prevent the city from having, the city's officially talking on those Facebook groups because we can't record that. And anything the city posts has to be open to a public records request. And so the official city cannot engage in those kind of Facebook group discussions because we would be unable to record that conversation and make it readily available for a public records request.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
And thank you for clarifying that. I do understand that. I guess what I'm saying, I guess, to the group holistically here is how can we make it to where the community feels like they can approach us in conversation? Yeah. Because I think a lot of, if I'm to be honest with you, a lot of the misunderstandings and lack of communication that you're receiving is probably coming from people that have misconceptions about, one, what your objectives are or what your goal is. And two, I mean, like, I'll be first to tell you, there's things about this meeting that I've learned today myself. I'm glad that I sat in on to understand a little bit more of what this includes, right? Versus just like, let's say the race baiting or sexual preference stuff like, again, just saying.
Well, and Jonathan, just to interject, because I'm glad that you're asking these questions, because this is one of the things that's been a discussion point amongst the DI specifically is what kind of actions can we take to address some of these things that you're talking about. So like the survey was something recently, and that was just really to raise awareness so that people could figure out how they can participate, what committees there are, what they do, who's on them, what can be done. Like one of the things that I think now, and this is where we need input from everybody, is, one of the most recent discussions is creating a youth council for DEI, because as a parent, I can tell you that what my kids are in my ear about and what they're hearing about and what they're learning about and the input that they're getting at school, we're going to hear about, Dad, there's this thing going on, there's this thing going on. So we're also trying to actively solve some of those barriers that you're bringing up, because the social media trauma is pointless and it's ridiculous, but everybody gets wrapped up into it, but it's not getting anyone anywhere. It's not raising awareness. It's not solving any problems. It's not really addressing anything. So I'm glad that you're considering this and asking these questions, because we have the same questions, You got something?
Just wondering, from the folks that put the plan together, you've created plans like this for other communities that are maybe similar in size, or have you?
Yes. Yes, we have.
Okay, and what could you tell us about the input that you got in Estacada versus another community that you've worked with?
When you say the input, you mean just the quantity? Or,
I don't know. I mean, just to say, like, are we receiving less? Is there less involvement from the community than other areas?
no, I don't think so. And as Brandy kind of mentioned before, you know, when you compare a project, like let's say there's the Main Street project's probably a good example, right? You've got a construction project coming, it's funded, something's going to happen. Those tend to get a lot more interaction and attention than a long-range transportation system plan that's nothing's funded. It's vague. People kind of maybe understand what it is, but it's not a construction. It's not as tangible as a construction project. So in general, it can be a challenge to really get a lot of people to continuously engage in something like a TSP update. That's pretty consistent across the board with, you know, some exceptions. In some communities, they're just very, very interested and engaged. But I'd say the level of engagement, pretty consistent with what I've seen.
I guess what I'm curious about is what are we doing to build trust within the community? That's my, like, just to be frank, that's my biggest thing. And as we saw from earlier meetings today as well, like that is going to be the issue that's going to be anybody's biggest wall right now and biggest hurdle is that there is a huge barrier between trusting leadership or leadership positions, if you will, within the community and the actual community itself. So,
I mean, it's been a while, but there were previous council members who hosted, you know, town hall forum where it's a little bit more open and informal rather than trying to come to the city council meetings and have your 3 minutes to kind of air your complaints and stuff like that. Also, that's a difficult situation to be in because there's the formality of like the function of the city and then the direction of the council and then generally you know, someone's here to bitch and moan about what problems they're having or what they think is not being done. So, you know, maybe we could have a little bit more regular community outreach meetings. I don't know if that's
That was kind of the thought process behind the What's Up. Is
Right.
that this is an informal chance for you to come and talk to the city, find out what's going
it's
on.
also kind of a prohibitive time.
Well, we
They
did a
did it
variety of
twice.
times.
have
We-
been?
Yeah,
Okay.
we did them at like 7 AM and 7 PM and noon, and we did them a variety of different days to try and engage different aspects of the community. And the idea behind the What's Up is this is an opportunity for you to come and talk to us with low barrier and it's not recorded. It's not like, you know, there's an agenda item. It's just, hey, what's going on in the community? What's up in the community?
so can I make a suggestion?
We love
Can-
suggestions.
Yeah, okay. Why don't we ask the city council formally to do that?
To
I'm-
do
I'm
the What's
saying
Up or the.
No, like
the-
the town hall idea.
town
That's a great idea. Something I do appreciate that that's what you did, but let's make it a thing like you want to fight fire with fire. From my experiences in the military, sometimes aggressive action needs to be met with aggressive action, right? And from any lens, if, let's just say like, let's use the meeting this morning for reference, when people thought it was leaked, that there was like some sort of secret meeting going down today. Look at your response via email, via showing up, via comment, via whatever. So if you make it to a very direct, this is the topic that we are going to have a town hall about to discuss this, to resolve,
Mhm.
you know, and I'm not saying,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a double-edged sword too. And that shouldn't necessarily be something that falls on the back of city staff to organize direct.
don't mean
You know,
that.
right. I think that would be, is that something that
Can
could
I,
be
this is awesome and I don't want to,
not related
I would
to-
love for us to continue this, but I want to make sure we make the best use of our consultants' time while we have them. Would you mind
No,
holding those until they leave? And then I think we could stay and chat about these things. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But
digress.
yeah,
No.
it'd be great to get, TSP related, transportation project related, or just like process related questions about this
Okay.
while they're here?
I'm not seeing any questions or any comments. So I want to thank John and Brandy.
You're
And
welcome.
John
Thank
and-
you.
Yeah, did you all have anything else you wanted to add before we dismiss you?
No, thank you for your time. And, I think if there are additional questions that come up about any of this, then sounds like that can circle back to us. So, we're around.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for the direction along the way. And I think maybe going back to the first question that was raised here, I think could be a lot of value in looking back at not only this process, but others that the city has gone through as far as outreach, and maybe taking a look and seeing where you're getting your return on investment, right? That's why we had like a 14-pronged approach, right, of public outreach, because some are going to be really effective, some aren't. You never really know. So I think you probably would find a lot of value in that, and I would encourage you to do it.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thanks, you
Thank
guys.
you both.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.